What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of CTL Speaks. This is your host for the evening, Alvin Johnson. We got a great show tonight. We are here tonight to talk about the 46th season with three of the four choreographers of our musicals for this 46th season. I'm joined by Katie Conklin, Kizzy Gula, and Kat Shondek. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, I'm very excited for this episode. Three of my absolute favorite people in the world. So we're going to talk all things choreo in just a few seconds. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's enjoy the show. I'm disappointed in all of the choreographers who just sat there sitting still watching this video.
I was mesmerized by all the different Aubin looks that I got to watch in the video. So.
You can always tell whether I'm in a show or out of a show because you'll have hair one way or the other depending on what's happening. Well, and I've introduced over the last 2 weeks, I've introduced a new Aubin look. So I throw my hair in a little, well, Shaylin calls it a ponytail, but I prefer to call it a bun. So I'll throw my hair in a bun because it's now long enough that I can do that. So every once in a while, we got a new Aubin coming at you. We got the ponytail bun.
Fresh face.
That's right. Always got to keep it interesting. So as I said, we are here with the choreographers. We are without Jackie Tripanowski this evening. We're going to catch up with her again. She's choreographing Shrek for our 46th season. We're going to catch up with her near to the springtime for Shrek. But we've got everyone else, and so I'm very excited. So ladies, let's have you introduce yourselves, what show you worked on or are working on, and then we'll get started with all the fun.
Awesome. I am Katie Conklin, and I choreographed Newsies back in August.
I'm Kizzy Gula, and I choreographed Cabaret, which just closed up.
And I'm Kat Shondek, and I'll be doing Beauty and the Beast.
Yay! I'm so excited. I have had the privilege to, I guess I didn't get choreographed by Katie and Newsies because I didn't do any choreo. But I got to watch Katie choreograph, and that was fun.
She didn't like teach you how to hold the bat.
No, that was an acting choice. That was just a choice that I made to get a laugh from Kat, apparently. So I had the privilege to watch Katie choreograph. I got the privilege of being choreographed by Kizzy in Cabaret, and I'm hoping to audition if my life settles down. Which it won't, so I'll just do it anyway, but hoping to audition for Kat very shortly. So I'm very excited and have worked with Kat before on Ragtime, so that was a tremendous occasion. So I'm very excited for this episode. I think that this is going to be good for anyone who is interested in choreography, who just wants to know kind of how to approach it. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. We're just going to talk all things choreo. And so we'll start with Katie. And Katie, let's just talk about Newsies first. Let's just talk about your experiences with the show, and then we'll see what comes up.
Yeah. So Newsies was happening over the summer. I kind of rolled right out of doing Chicago and changing mindsets from being in something to being like a teacher again. So that was really cool to bounce kind of back and forth there at the end from like auditions right into like, back up into another rehearsal. But it was really fun. We saw a lot of new faces, which is always great to see at CTL. And I feel like it happened very fast. So I'm very appreciative for anyone who learned choreography from me that, they took everything and, were sponges, and we worked. And with Newsies, it's a big group of people. So utilizing the space and making sure that, were our lines stretched, and did we have room for people, and how can we make these group numbers that can sometimes feel identical from one to the next throughout the show, be different from the one that you just saw that had the same group of people. So, we talked a lot about energy and, what are we bringing to each number that's going to differentiate, do we have sharp moves that are representing power, or are we jumping around and smiling and seizing the day? So just, taking people at all ranges of life and experience and being able to, in such a short amount of time, turn around a show that is known for tricks and acrobatics and tap dancing and, all of the stops. So that was really cool to get to work with everybody and, just throw things at them and have them be like, all right, let's do it. Let's buckle down. Let's put on the show.
Awesome. So then we'll keep on brand with the conversation, and I do have another question, but we'll get there in a second. So Kizzy, you want to really quickly talk about your experience with Cabaret and getting ready for that?
Yeah, before we go to that, I just want to say, Katie, I have students who auditioned for Newsies, and they were in Newsies, and they absolutely loved you, and they had such a good time, and
Awesome.
they were just like, oh, we loved it so much, and there was so much we learned, and I always tell my kids, go audition, go learn from someone else. You're gonna learn so much if you just branch out and you go learn from someone else. Yes, you're comfortable, but go learn from someone else. So great job. They loved you, and you did a amazing job. Yeah, for sure.
That's the best compliment. I so appreciate
Who
that.
doesn't love Katie? I mean,
right? Cabaret. Cabaret was a dream show for me. So when Seth texted me and asked me if I wanted to choreograph it, I was I literally dropped my phone because I was just like, no, not me. This message was definitely for Kat. He's not asking me to choreograph this. And I was just blown away, and I was completely honored. And I love going and watching all the shows that everyone does because it gives me life. And just before that, was Chicago, and I was blown away by what Kat did with Chicago. It was so true to what Fosse is, but it was Kat styled. And I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. How do I do that? And if you know Fosse, it's a specific type of movement, and the integrity of keeping that is so important. And it's such a difficult movement to teach. But Cabaret was literally the best thing I've ever choreographed, and I will stand by that. And that, I mean, it's a testament to the actors who come out and try and give their all, because they literally blew me away. I cried every time that y'all did the opening number, and it was phenomenal. It was a great experience for me, and I hope it was a great experience for everybody else.
Yeah, and I had the privilege of being there, and I can second that. It was incredible the whole step of the whole way. So thank you, Kizzy. And I just want to say this before we get to the next question. Those of you who are watching this episode live, please feel free to ask any questions that you'd like in the comments, either on Facebook or YouTube. We'll throw them on the screen, and we'll have a portion where we'll get to answer those questions. Or even if you just want to give a shout out and say hello to anyone here, please feel free to throw those in the comments. Let the ladies know that you're here. And again, any questions you have either about Beauty and the Beast auditions that are coming up, or about the shows, or your experiences, or anything for anyone that's here, please feel free to throw in the comments. So with that being said, and we'll start with Kat because we haven't heard from her because her show hasn't happened yet. But Kat, can you just talk to us, and this question will be for everyone again, but what is your approach when you first are given a title, whether it's a title that you've chosen for yourself or that you've been asked to choreograph? Where do you start when it comes to choreography?
So fortunately for me, I'm as old as dirt. So I have been able to see a lot of the shows that I've been involved in. So I have some sort of a reference. Mm-hmm. But a big rule that I have is the minute I know I'm going to be working on a show, I stop watching anything associated with the show, because I want the ideas to be mine. Mm-hmm. I don't want to inadvertently take something that is somebody else's work and claim it as my own. A little bit different for Chicago, but I made sure the credit was there when it needed to be. My big thing, the way that I approach choreography in particular, is I will listen to the music nonstop, particularly when I'm driving, which for me, when I'm driving to CTL, I get plenty of car time and plenty of time to be able to listen. And I develop pictures in my head. It comes so easy to me. Music, I'm so connected to music. It's very emotional to me. And I just develop these pictures in my head. And then eventually, the hardest part for me is to take what's up here, these pictures, and put them on paper. And that's the thing I procrastinate the most about, is making that, that change from the vision to the actual tactile, this is what's going to happen kind of thing. And then it just falls into place, and I do my stick figure choreography, which I'm famous for, where I just have a ton of stick figures like laid all out and everything like that. And then we go into work. And Aubin, you know how I run rehearsals. So yeah, that's how I do it. It's all about taking those pictures and connecting with the music, and finding the nuances in the music is a big thing for me too. Something that maybe the audience wouldn't hear unless you physically showed them that there's something in the music that is really making a point that will expand the story more for you. And and I always unpack the show with whoever's the director. Literally sit down before I start working on anything and say, what's your vision? Because for me, it's so important to make sure that I am being true to what the director's vision is. I want to be able to connect my work with their work and make it seem like it's the same person that did it all.
I wish I could be like sending hearts, like as she said, some of the things like thumbs up, yes. Because like, I'm watching like Piggy and I'd be like, yes, I felt that. But like all of that is so true. Just to like piggyback off of that, like Kat and I had a really great conversation during Chicago about like music and like how you take what you're feeling and put it on paper, which then comes out of the paper onto the stage again. And like that is just such an incredible thing. And you don't understand it unless you do it. So I don't know, like my notes for things, like it would be like a crazy language of drawings, and like it doesn't even look readable to like the average person, but you hand it to me and I'm like, oh yeah, I meant like flap ball change. We're going to do that 4 times and then we're going to head to the back. And like, it's just a really cool thing to do. So like if there's ever an opportunity for anyone out there to try choreography in any regard, I highly recommend it. It's like a really cool skill to acquire.
Kizzy?
Yeah, I think it was funny when Kat was saying that, like driving in the car and like listening to the song on repeat. I will literally do that and like hear the song in my sleep. And especially with Cabaret, like it was such a mind block of like, okay, but this has to be specific, but it can't be the same, but it has to be different, but it has to be specific. And there was one night that I was sitting like in my living room and I was trying to write down money, and I like started with all of the hand motions and everything, was running through it and absolutely hated it. And I was just like, this is not at all what I want it to be. This is nothing that's coming out right now is what I want it to be. And I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I started, like, I heard it in my head and I started just seeing like canes and like everything else. And I was just like, yeah, I have to write this down now. And it was like 3 a.m., like, and I'm just like, no, I have to do this right now. Like, but yeah, like you'll listen to something over and over and over again, and it just gets in your mind and in your body. And like, I think there's something really like spiritual about that, of like listening to the tracks over and over again, it like getting in your body, getting in your soul, and then your soul literally like vomits out like this choreography, and you're just like, yeah, so this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah. And actually, I love that, and it brings up another question that I think is intriguing, because we've all been a part of the creative process in some form or fashion, and so like we have these visions, and then we don't know if they're going to work until you do them. And until you see it, like when, for example, Kizzy, like when we were working on The Little Mermaid and we had the ocean choreography, like I had this idea of what I wanted the storm to look like, with these curtains going all over the place, but we needed to figure out how to make it work. And so how do you go from the idea that's in your head to the idea that's on paper to then getting other people to execute the vision that you had? And so we talked about this with the music directors on that episode, how you go from like, you don't want people to, or you give people some license to change things sometimes while still keeping true to the story and still to the original intent. But so for choreography, how does that look different? How do you approach getting someone to execute your vision for what the choreography is? And is there leeway? I mean, I guess depending on, anyway, I'll stop talking. You guys talk.
Okay, I'll take it, I guess. For me, a lot of it, especially when you're working with big groups, it is having a plan and being organized, but being flexible and able to pivot at the last minute. Aubin, like from both Chicago and from Ragtime, there were a couple times where I was like, that's not going to work. Let's try this instead. And you have to be humble enough to accept if something that you created is not going to work, that you can step back and make a change with it. When you're working in a smaller group, or with Chicago, I've got to tell you, I think it was probably the greatest session I've ever had in my life. Katie and I actually had a number where it was just Katie, and we collaborated on the number, and it was amazing. I left and I was so happy, and I had a plan, but I also had approached her and said, I have an idea about what we want to do with this, but I really want it to be you. So let's collaborate on this. And we really did a lot of shifting and changing around with things on that. I basically broke her body that day, but
there's video evidence of this.
But there's her going, oh yeah. But by the same token, you have to be able to put I'm a pretty rigid person, but by the same token, I have to be able to accept the fact that if something's not working, it's not working. And you have to be able to adapt and adjust, for me, the thing that I think works with taking that vision from here to paper to getting a group of community theater actors who are not always dancers, to be able to execute what I want, is that I use my loose terms with dance moves, or that I use my sound effects when I'm trying to make a dance move. I'll do a sound effect so that and can connect the move with that sound effect. So I think that is a way that you can kind of make that transition and change. And you've got to just be honest with yourself the entire time. And I love when I can look at my cast's faces and also immediately know this is working for them, this is not working for them. either I've got to fix something or I've got to help them fix something. So
Yeah, I think that was the hardest part with Mermaid, was that we had a cast that was 8 years old to 32.
Yeah.
And they're all in Under the Sea.
Right.
And it was like, how do we make this work for an 8-year-old and a 32-year-old, and everyone's going to be fine? Like, and that, I think that pushed me, like, and made me grow a little bit in the aspect of like making things really flexible for the actors so that they could execute something and feel good about themselves, but be all together. Because like, you know how it feels like if somebody's like, yeah, how about you try this? And then it's like, it doesn't work out, and maybe you're put in the back. Or I know myself, I've had those experiences, and you just feel like, did I do something wrong? Like, I can try again. Like, would you like me to try again? Like, and so I am always very aware of like the emotions of the actors. Like, I don't know the kind of day that they've had before they come into the theater, before they come into the studio, whatever. And my importance of that is like, they come in, I heal them with choreography, and they leave better than they came in. And if that means like, okay, we're all going to do this so that everyone feels great about themselves and it looks good and it's all together, like that's what that means. And that's been my biggest like thing, is like just learning how to choreograph for that big of a spectrum, like, and make sure that everyone feels included and good about themselves.
Yeah. Katie, anything to add?
Yeah, just that I'll just piggyback again and say that like one of the best moments of being a choreographer is the moment when it just clicks. Like you start to like, there's like a popcorn leading up to that where like you can tell who's practicing and you can tell who, like, I video a lot and put stuff in Facebook groups. I'm like, do your homework. But like when the whole group gets it for the first time and you're like, yes, like there's what I was dreaming about at 3 a.m. And like that's where something happens and you get to see it for the first time, because when you have lifts or tricks or like things like formations that have like multiple things going on, and like you see it happen for the first time where you're not like doing all the different parts in the front. Like I as much as I wish I could lift myself when I choreograph, I just can't. So you see all those
it's easier.
you see all those elements that like you piece together like along the way finally take shape and come to life, and you're like, okay, let's do this. And sharing with the group then, like, yes, did that feel good? Like, I'm a very vocal choreographer. I'm like, all right, I take verbal yeses, I take verbal no's. Did we get it? Did we not? Because nothing is worse than when you like do an 8 count or 16 count and you turn around, you're like, okay, yeah. And they're like, so just seeing it click for every stage of dancer, like finally, is such a cool thing, especially in the community theater setting.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite. I just love all those aha moments. Like you feel them as an actor, you feel them from the production side. It's like that's what we were looking for. And sometimes, like you're right, like sometimes it's not always the way we originally intended it, but sometimes that's okay too. And we got to take those moments. I mean, Kizzy, and that happened with us in Cabaret. Especially like the kick line. Like there were some really cool ideas that you had that we started to figure out, and then the more we tried to work it, and we hit that point where it was just not going to work, and so we pivoted and we made it work, and it was a phenomenal number. And so I just love those aha moments that we get when we finish, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what it was supposed to be from the beginning.
That's why we're here.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's why we're here. Right?
As a performer, as somebody on the production team, like that's why we do theater, for those moments.
Absolutely. So you all have kind of mentioned various aspects of approaching the show, and so I have questions that I don't think I got to earlier, but they're in here now, and so Kat, in your last thing that you were talking about. You were talking about going from a larger ensemble show like a Ragtime, for example, to a smaller ensemble show like a Chicago. In your experiences in general, for all for the choreographers here, what do you find easier to choreograph in a show? The larger ensemble numbers, or kind of when you get like maybe it's a solo dance number or like a small group number? Which do you find easier, and why? Or is one more challenging than the other, and why?
You know, for me, I don't think it's necessarily the number of people in a production.
Mhm.
It's the way I feel about the song, or what's happening in the song, or what is being, how the story's moving along in the song. Do you know what I mean? For example, the Dream Ballet that Seth had me do for Bridges is probably one of the things I'm most proud of, and that only had 3 people. But I can also think about one of the other times I've done Beauty and the Beast, where I had 150 children doing Human Again, and there was a moment where I had 4 circles all going in different directions, and they were all waltzing and doing, and it, it was so fulfilling, and both of those were not easy to get to. But I really do think that for me, what's easier or harder, there's a lot of things that play into that.
Mhm.
Where's my mindset when I'm creating it? How am I feeling about the progress that we've made? So but the biggest thing for me is, how do I feel about the number in general? Like if I'm struggling with the number, if the number that Katie and I did, which I said was like one of the greatest times that I've had, if I wasn't feeling that number, we would have had a horrible time,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't have been the way that it was. But I mean, God, anything in Chicago I was going to love. But, but by the same token, if it really, for me, I don't think the number of people matters. I think it's just the connection that I have to the production number and to the show too. If I think the show is stupid, I'm going to struggle through every single number. And I have. So
Yeah,
I also, sorry,
go ahead, Katie. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it also, like, I totally agree with Kat, and I think sometimes it depends on, like what Kizzy said earlier, the energy that people bring that day. If somebody comes into a rehearsal and you're really excited about whatever song you're doing, and like it revolves around this person, but they're having a rough day, like that kind of dictates your rehearsal. Which then, kind of sets a beginning tone for the song that you might have to turn around into a good thing, like Kizzy said. And I think it totally depends on, have I done the work to come up with choreography that I like? Am I feeling connected to what I'm teaching? And passing that energy to the people that are learning. I just totally agree that it depends on what it's calling for. It depends on, the style of dance sometimes affects that. I've done, tap numbers, and you can have, like, I was in college and I was doing Crazy for You. I'll use like an example. I was teaching 25 girls that come out of like a limousine, how to tap dance around like a character in the show, and they had never put tap shoes on in their life. So, how do I keep my energy going and like, you're gonna get this, it's gonna be great, to get them to believe that, so it is. So I totally agree with everything that has been said about that.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, if you have a number that you have to choreograph that the style of dance is just not your bag, it is the hardest thing in the world. Like, I am not a tap dancer. I will tell everybody that. I love tap. I appreciate tap. Like, I think it's great, but I am not a tap dancer. Like, and when we did Mary Poppins this past year at Loyal Sock, like, I was like struggle bussing so hard. Like, and I was just like, this is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I'm not going to do it. And then when we went straight from that to mermaid, and Aubin was like, yeah, so positivity. And I was like, oh no, another tap number. Like, I like literally blanked and forgot. And so like, I think the coolest thing though is that when you do have auditions and you have somebody come in and they're like, yeah, I have this experience, I have that experience, like blah, blah, blah. It's so great to work with people who come from different backgrounds of dance, and they really want to collaborate with you. They want to take your choreography and like do it to their best ability, no matter what. And I think that's the really cool thing about doing community theater, is that people come in and they're like, yeah, I have this experience, I have that experience. Oh, I danced here for a while, danced there for a while. Like, and you'll give them something and they'll run with it. And it's just so cool to see them breathe life into your choreography.
Yeah, that's incredible. I have more questions, so we're not gonna. I got more, because every time you guys say something, it's like another thought comes in, and I think that this episode is just really good for our audiences to see and to kind of hear. It is we walk into a room or an audition room or in a rehearsal, and we know like the choreographer has all these ideas. I think it is so interesting to see how the choreographer gets to those ideas, like the mind of the choreographer, because we don't get that a lot. Usually those rehearsal times are reserved for rehearsal purposes. You know what I mean? Like, you're there because you have to learn a number and you don't get to ask the question why. And if you do sometimes, or if you're me, you ask why. And then you make your choreographer upset with you. And that's okay too. But I think it's interesting to get this opportunity to hear from a choreographer's perspective how this whole process works. As I think that gives us, like with all the other episodes that we've had, we get to see a different side of the production staff that you're not used to seeing, and you kind of understand how they approach things. And so I just think this is really important for our listeners. Shout out Nicole, love and positivity, Kizzy. That was great. So we are going to take, this is fake. This is not really a break, so we're not going anywhere. It's going to be like a half a second. It's just for audio. Okay, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with the episode right after this. And we're back. So we're back at I have to put it in there, and I forgot to warn you, and I started the text, and then Kizzy was done talking, and I was like, okay, it's going to happen now. So I got a couple more questions that kind of go along with what we've been talking about. So I'll stick with this one because it's the most recent. So Kizzy, you just mentioned that tap isn't your favorite thing in the world because it's just not in you I mean, it's in you, but it's not in you, if that makes sense. And so this is not a fast five question, although it seems like it should be. What is your favorite type or genre of dance to choreograph or to perform? And then your least favorite to choreograph or perform, just because I'm curious.
My favorite to choreograph or perform would definitely be contemporary, hands down. I'm a very like soulful person, and like if I feel the music and the music makes me want to cry, makes me want to laugh, makes me want to dance, like that's everything to me. And to create movement freely without really any rules, which is basically what contemporary is, like that's so important to me. And least favorite would be tap.
All right. I think we all know my favorite answer. I love tap dancing. I just, it's something that I have always loved. And it fills my percussive dreams because I'm not a drummer, so I might as well just use my feet. But, what an awkward way to say that. But anyway, tap dance. And I love like the cheesy Shuffle Off to Buffalo all the way to like the contemporary, like we're sitting low, making all sorts of sounds. And then I cannot do acro anything. I don't know if it's because of the tap and the rigidity. Is that the word?
It's a great word.
Like my ankles, sure, but like you need me to do a back walkover, it's not happening. So yeah, that's my answer.
So I would argue that she could do acro because I tried to get her to do some stuff in there.
That's so kind.
That was where the cat came from. But my favorite is lyrical. Very close to what Kizzy said with the contemporary, but I have a little bit more structure in mind. I really love partnering in lyrical. I'm all about expressing emotion, and that you can kind of combine the acting and the movement all together. And again, I have such a strong connection to music and the emotions that it brings out of me, because I'm typically an ice queen unless you play me a song and then I melt. And then I'd have to say my least favorite, not because I don't appreciate it, but because I look a fool when I attempt it, is hip hop. I just, and there's nobody ever wants to see me even try to do that.
I would pay fantastically great money to be in a Kat Shondick choreographed hip hop production. I'm gonna have to sway someone. I mean, there's a board meeting tomorrow. I think I have a conversation.
You think, Aubin, you've seen me at my most awkward? Because I think you think that you see me at my most awkward. No, not even close. Not even close.
But I think that and all of your answers speak to the world of choreography, because there is just so much difference and similarities in everything. And so like each of you had your own favorite and your own and so like you really get to experience the spectrum of what dance is, and there's just so much to love and so much to experience, and it's just phenomenal. So I have one more question, and this kind of ties into what we've been speaking about now and speaking about in the past. So earlier we were talking about downloading the music in your brains and allowing yourself to paint pictures. And so I wanted to know, for you as a choreographer, what is the most important thing to pay attention to when you're downloading that music in your brain and painting those pictures? Do you pay more attention to the music and the feelings that the music itself invokes, or is it the lyrics that are being sung or in that? Like, what do you find to be, and maybe this is a question that's maybe, how do you find a way to make them work together? So you've got the music doing one thing, and a lot of times the lyrics are working in tandem with the music, but how do you make that work with the choreo also? And then is it one way or the other in terms of which one gets more attention from you, the lyrics or the actual music itself?
I think that's like really difficult because it also depends on your cast. Like, I've definitely had cast members be like, okay, but what word is it on? And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know the words. Like, or I'll have someone say, well, what count is it on? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the count, like, and it's more for me, like Kat was saying earlier about like the nuances in the music and creating nuances with choreography. I pay attention to like the undertones of things. Like there's like a little twinkle in the music and I'm like, oh, that's where that is at. Like, or there's like percussion in the background, like underneath. And I'm like, oh, those are the steps, like, and so that's, for me, that's what I think about when I like listen to it and I make up the choreography. I don't think it's like really one or the other. It's really just, I hear those little things and I'm like, oh, I can totally do this or that.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, like, sometimes it's easy and it'll be like number 17, the spread eagle, boom, and you know exactly what's supposed to be happening. Or sometimes, there's 6 different singing parts going on. I know in Newsies, like in one of the beginning numbers, there were like patter sections happening and people would be like, what word is this on? Or what count is this on? I'm like, I don't know. We're walking like 1, 2, 3, 4. And getting all of that to mesh together, like I feel a lot of times I use like the dynamics of the music and like are we driving to a different like a growth point in the song where, you know, we're going to bust out and do something, or, you know, are we slowing down and somebody's going to have a moment by themselves? I think like the music is definitely the blueprint and the words are like the map kind of. But I think that makes sense. Like it's both. It just depends on the show, depends on the style, and what each number is calling for kind of tells you what to follow.
Yeah, I think it's definitely both. And I think you get a it's almost that you mesh the two together. I don't think there's a case where one is more important than the other. It really is. It can be something in the music that leads to the word that you really want to emphasize, but that point in the music and the movement in the music is going to really drive that word. So I definitely think that I don't think it's a consistent, I don't think you're going to find a consistent answer, because there's definitely, you know, when I was doing Hairspray, when I was doing You Can't Stop the Beat, I mean, there were many times where I was literally doing motions to the words, you know, but then like 8 counts before that, it didn't matter what the words were. It mattered what the music was. So I think there's a lot of back and forth with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just something, I think it's just ingrained in you. If you're that connected to the music and to the lyrics and to everything, it just kind of is something that you just kind of do. I don't think you actively are thinking,
Sure,
you know, music versus lyrics. I think it just happens very organic.
I think they create like a beautiful marriage. Like, and for some reason, like in our like minds, our crazy minds, we're like, oh yeah, this is what's going on here. Like, it's not one or the other, which is why it's always hard for me to answer like, oh, like, is it on this or that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel it. Like,
yeah. Those are all phenomenal answers. And we're going to end this portion in just a second, but we got to give Kat a chance because she hasn't talked about her show yet.
That's
so,
okay.
Kat, we're going to end this.
I haven't thought about my show yet.
We got Fast 5 to get to, so we're definitely going to get there. But I want you to just talk, if you can, really quickly about what you're excited for the most. Auditions for Beauty and the Beast at CTL are coming up December 4th and 5th at 7 p.m. So what should people expect from the audition, if you already have that prepped and ready to go? What should they have?
You know me?
Yes, I do, which is why I know I can ask the question. So what should they expect coming into the audition, as well as what are you most excited? I know we've talked about this before. You've worked on the show before. You've directed it before. You've choreographed it before. What are you excited about doing differently for this production at CTL?
So I've been very fortunate in that, love you, Kristen, that I have been able to work with Seth. I think our first show was in 2015. So he and I have actually, I've done more shows with him as a director than any other director except for myself. And I always love teaming up with Seth. I love his production team. We all work very well together. So I'm super excited about that. Super excited about returning to the Community Arts Center because I love that space. I love being able to fill that space. It's so exciting and there's so much room and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see who comes out for the show. I love seeing new faces. My heart gets warm when I see familiar faces. As far as the expectations for dancing and choreography and stuff like that, Steph and I haven't totally unpacked the show yet, but we both did agree that every single person will need to be able to move somewhat, right? So anybody that auditions is going to go through some sort of movement at some point during the auditions. And I really do try to take as much of the anxiety and fear away from that part of the audition. My big mission, I feel like, and one of my strengths is making dance and movement approachable and attainable to anyone. I honestly believe that anybody can dance. So many people show up to auditions and talk about how dance is their least favorite part of auditions and they're so nervous about it and stuff. And those are always my favorite part of auditions. And I know I'm biased, but I want people to be excited about the dance part of auditions. So anytime I try to run an audition, I try to make that the most fun and accessible, and anybody can do it. It's so much fun. Now, for this one, we are going to have everybody doing movement, but I am so excited about this. I get my own special dance ensemble for this show. So there are some dance breaks in Beauty and the Beast where we need some particularly strong dancers. So I get to then keep some people and give them a little bit more of a complicated dance audition. And I'm super pumped about that. I've never really had the opportunity to do that at CTL. So it's really fun for me to be able to say, okay, you're all doing great. You're all doing great, but I want to push you guys a little bit harder. So that is what I want, what I'm looking forward to being able to do. And I think Aubin got offline or something. He's frozen.
It's just us.
Hey, here we are. This is our takeover. No. Is this where we do like impromptu choreography? Like somebody can play a song and be like, we'll just get going. Somebody can yell a style and we'll just,
as long as it's not the top, right?
Welcome back.
I was so excited. I was so excited to hear about the special dance ensemble, but apparently you made my computer nervous, Kat. Like I froze, and again, like I started texting you guys that my computer froze, and I had no idea.
Saw it. Yeah.
And then it shut down, and then now I'm back. I don't know what happened, but the special dance ensemble sounds great. I don't know what it is, but I think it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm excited. All right. Before my
You'll have to watch tomorrow.
Yes, I'll have to go
and
back.
Then you'll learn. Yeah.
Yes, I will do that for sure. Before my computer explodes, let's finish this thing strong. Beauty and the Beast auditions December 4th and 5th at 7 p.m. at CTL. Look. That's right, Seth. They've been completely unsupervised the whole time. For 48 minutes, they've been on their own. So what happens when you leave me hanging?
And I have not cursed once.
She's done so good. I'm very proud. Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. It is time for Fast Five. I have 5 questions. Katie, you've never heard these ones before because I had to change them slightly because it's all about choreography. So in every answer, I want you to think choreography specifically. Number 1, and whoever wants to start can start. What is your favorite musical choreography? So it can be something you've seen, it can be something you've done, it can be whatever, but your favorite musical because of the choreography. That's the question.
Xanadu, hands down.
Moulin Rouge.
I'm going to be basic and say Chicago.
Katie really
because of my choreography.
I just feel like it's just a masterpiece of choreography.
All fantastic answers. This is my favorite question to ask. So here you go. Again, thinking specifically about choreography, what show and its choreography do you find overrated? The most overrated. Oh, God. my heart.
Everything in that show is overrated, including the choreography.
My tears are here, Kat. You broke me. You broke my heart right there.
Footloose.
I'm gonna say Anything Goes, and I love Sutton Foster, and I love tap dance, but it can just be a lot.
Good answers again. All right. On the same token, what show do you think deserves some more shine because of its choreography? What is the most underrated choreography in your opinion?
Pippin.
It's a good one.
That's a good one. Both
I'm gonna-
old and revived.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say like something more recent. I think the choreography in Hadestown is beautiful. It's very minimal, but what it does for the story, like, you know, it's one of those like lyrical moments. Not much is happening, but it's just beautiful.
I'm going to be really cheesy for a minute, and just say something that really impressed me, and I don't think got enough love for the choreography, was Aladdin. Like, if you saw it on Broadway and what they did, and I actually, somebody from State College was in it, and we got to talk to him, and being able to focus on the one person because you knew who they were, and seeing all that they did, that was like, blew me away a little bit.
Awesome. Katie, by the way, you're having a much easier time answering these questions than you did the last time. So just know you're getting better.
They're still not my favorite because I always like say things and I'm like, oh wait, but I actually think this.
Wait,
but then I think of another one. Like, I have lots of answers to these questions.
I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and be like,
I'm gonna wake up to a message from Kat at 4 o'clock in the morning. She's gonna say, "I actually meant this was my favorite." I look forward to reading that one when I wake up at 6:30. Well, nice. All right, here's question number 4. So we're almost there. What is your dream show to choreograph? Or if you want to spin it, to perform in the choreography.
Well, I just did both of mine. Cabaret was definitely like it was number one on my list. I had a really abusive dance teacher who like would just constantly put you down, and he was like, "You'll never dance Fosse," like, and I was just like, okay. And so doing Cabaret and being able to dance in Mein Herr was like literally everything to me. So that's my answer.
I'm gonna say Hairspray would be really fun to choreograph, just for many different reasons. It just seems really fun, and I like fun and sometimes cheesy.
God, I don't know. That one, you're stumping me. I'm sure I'm going to think of something else, but I do think that Chicago, for me, as far as a choreographer, was my moment. I'm so proud of that show, and so proud of the cast, and being able to take a lifetime of Fosse training and put my own spin on it, and come up with some different ideas and ways to honor that fabulous choreographer, was a dream. Being in something, Katie, I'm sorry, I've always wanted to be Reno Sweeney. I know I've now
No, I love that part. Like, I just, like, more recently, things that I've seen, I've just been like, right. Wow.
Yeah, but I'm too old now to be her, so I can only be like the ladies with the walkers or anything like that anymore. So.
Oh, Kat, you're funny. All right, the fifth and last question of Fast Five. Now, this is a thinker. and I'm not gonna know who any of these people are because I'm not a dancer. But
Oh no.
But you will. Of
Let's just stop while we're ahead with this question.
No, I have to ask it because it came to mind, and I think it's gonna be great. Who is your dream choreographer to have worked with, either living or non-living? Who do you wish you would have the opportunity? This is the same question, but would have the
This is like
opportunity.
a thesis question. Like, I need time.
Well, you got time. You got as much time between whoever else answers.
Deceased, definitely Gene Kelly. Like
That was going to be my answer.
Living, Derek Huff or Mark Ballas, 100%.
I'll take Kizzy's answers.
Yeah, me too.
I would have loved to have been in the room with Bob Fosse, but not necessarily been taught by him, if that makes sense. I know, Kizzy, you get that, but to see him create, I think would have been unreal.
Michael Bennett from Chorus Line, I think, would have been really cool to spend some time with and chat with. There's a really cool documentary called Every Little Step, and it's about the revival of Chorus Line and all of the dancers in that and how they were cast. And I remember watching that when I was in college and like learning about how he interviewed the dancers, and that's how that show came to be. I just think, like, how cool is that for somebody to say, like, I have this idea and let's collaborate and make it about you, and let me tell your story, and like this, there's no right or wrong. And I just feel like for a choreography to like understand you like that is just incredible. So I'm gonna throw him out there too.
I'm gonna assume these are all great answers because, like I said, I mean, like I know some name, but yeah, that's why you're here. All right, this has, I think, been one of the most informational episodes that we've been able to have, and just to really unpack the mind of a choreographer, which I think for people who are not, because like we've all been probably around people who sing in some music direct, like you might get that idea of what that's supposed to be like because you know how singing works, but there's so much in the spectrum of dance that there is to talk about. And so I think that episode was just really special to hear from choreographers who got to talk about experiences and the shows they've worked on and just how the creative process comes together. And so Katie, Kizzy, and Kat, I just want to thank you all for being here and joining us and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I think that this was really special. So thank you all for sharing your time with me this evening and with our audience who is watching and or listening. So thank you very much.
Thank you all, Ben.
Of
Yeah,
course.
Thank you. This was fun. I love you all.
Love you all too.
This has been a fantastically wonderful episode of what show is this? CTL Speaks. I'm so used to doing my own podcast. I almost signed off using my other podcast handles, so I gotta just think about where I am. This has been another episode of CTL Speaks. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Check us out on ctlshows.com for all information that is upcoming about shows and tickets and all that fun stuff. Miracle on 34th Street is coming out as soon, hitting the stage in December, so make sure you check that out. And I don't think there's anything else. So have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.